Okay, so let's talk about the criminal record of the Rev, me, otherwise known as Crystal Cox, Crystal L. Cox, investigative blogger Crystal Cox, Reverend Crystal Cox, or you might know me as, Nazi, bigot, fascist, some of the other names. Anyhow, my criminal record. So, I will be 55 years old this year, and I've never been charged with a crime in my life. In Port Townsend, I've been here 12 years. I've never been pulled over by a cop. I've never, I'd never had any sort of anything. So, now I have over a dozen criminal charges against me here in Jefferson County, Washington. So, how did that happen? Well, first of all, you got the mayor out there, you got Councilor Wennstrom and others, got people on the next door site, the lynch mob, saying I'm a convicted swindler. Okay, well, convicted swindling, I'm not really sure if that's a crime, but they believe that I'm convicted of the crime of extortion. Because during my free speech case, all sides wanted my case to stop, so they were defaming me everywhere. And so they pretty much say I'm guilty of the crime of extortion. It was a civil case. The email that they call extortion was one email out of a thread of 14 in a settlement negotiation where I was my own attorney. It was against the rules of evidence to be released in the trial. And Mayor Faber's an attorney. He knows this stuff. He also knows that I won my appeal, but he's still out there defaming me, and so is Libby. They're lying about my case. Libby says I have a judgment against me for defamation. I don't. I have a default from a corrupt attorney. My attorney went on all these ones that are getting the bad funding now we're finding out about. So Reuters, AP Press, NPR. My attorney went on all those. And he also connected with other attorneys. He was my attorney, and he turned on me, right? I sued him for malpractice, and he countersued. I didn't answer the suit properly, got a default judgment. Countersued saying, you don't have a right to sue. Well, the Nevada judge said I did, and it was moving forward. But he froze my $10 million case against him for malpractice and defamation through the bankruptcy courts. And that's Mark Rondaz. I got my story out there about that. But though the rumor mill is that I've been convicted of a crime, I've never been convicted of a crime. I've never been even charged with a crime. Nothing. So fast forward to, you might see my stuff out there about a year ago, so February of 2024. And I had, I'll just briefly tell you. So Ginny Ellison had contacted me. She was in a situation, and I felt like she was in danger. 911 Jeffcom dispatch said I should get a protective order. The detective said that would be best too. I got a protective order for Ginny against the parties. There, I submitted the evidence of hundreds of pages of text where they'd left her for dead, where they had tried to sink a boat that she was living on, left her in California, abusing her constantly, like in messages, and so physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever. All this proof to the court, plus prior incident reports of prior domestic violence. All ignored by Judge Lorraine Remsen, who then gave the guys protective orders against Ginny, and gave them protective orders against me. So when I went in to the first hearing to stand up for Ginny as a victim's advocate, which is part of my mission, my nonprofit I've had for 12 years, is part of what I do. And in that advocacy, I also do the stuff that you see online. So went into the court, and all of Salish Rescue, including Libby Wennstrom, showed up to this vulnerable adults situation where I had all this proof of her abuse and what was happening to her. Well, they went in there to rail against me. They went in there to go against Ginny, who used to be part of Salish Rescue. Went in there to intimidate, which I was involved in an ethics complaint process against Libby at the time as well. And so I complained to the city about that. Okay, well, when we were at the hearing, Judge Forbes wouldn't let me say anything. So she let Salish Rescue just completely berate, belittle, say all kinds of horrible things about me, but wouldn't let me talk. And they made Ginny talk for herself, right? And she really struggled. It was a really hard time. And then you got all of Sailors Rescue in the room, intimidating her. So the outcome of that, she said she was going to give everybody mutual protective orders. I wasn't involved in it. It wasn't a protective order against me at the time. It was in Ginny. So Forbes, Commissioner Pro Tem Judge Forbes, kept saying, well, this isn't about Crystal yet. She'd commented to that, right? And I'm like, oh, great. And she wouldn't let me speak. Wouldn't let me speak for Ginny or myself to defend myself. I just had to sit there and shut up. Okay, so she put the case on hold for 2 weeks, and then we went before Judge Lorraine Remsen.
Thanks. All right, the reason I called these two matters together is that in both of these cases, Reverend Cox has petitioned on behalf of Jennifer Odessa Ellison, asserting that Ms. Ellison is a vulnerable adult. The court has reviewed the relevant statutes, and we'll go over those now. RCW 7.105.100 identifies the types of petitions that exist in Washington State for civil protection orders. And these various types of petitions allow for a petitioner to file on behalf of a vulnerable adult where the petitioner is an interested person. RCW 7.105.10 includes the definitions, and initially the definition number 19 describes what an interested person is. An interested person means a person who demonstrates to the court's satisfaction that the person is interested in the welfare of a vulnerable adult, that the person has a good faith belief that the court's intervention is necessary, and that the vulnerable adult is unable, due to incapacity, undue influence, or duress at the time the petition is filed, to protect his or her own interest. That same statute 7.105.10 at number 37 defines a vulnerable adult. A vulnerable adult includes a person 60 years of age or older. That does not apply to Ms. Ellison. A vulnerable adult includes a person subject to a guardianship under RCW 11.130.265 or adult subject to conservatorship under RCW 11.130.360. That does not apply to Ms. Ellison. Vulnerable adult includes a person, I'm skipping letter C for the moment. Letter D, a person admitted to any facility. That does not apply to Ms. Ellison. Receiving services from home health, hospice, or home care agencies licensed or required to be licensed under Chapter 70.127. That does not apply to Ms. Ellison. Receiving services from a person under contract with the Department of Social and Health Services to provide services in the home. That does not apply to Ms. Ellison. Or to a person who self-directs his or her own care and receives services from a personal aid under Chapter 74.39. That does not apply to Ms. Ellison. That leaves one remaining option, subsection C, includes a person who has a developmental disability as defined under RCW 71.A.10.020. Developmental disability as defined in 71A.10.020 means a disability attributable to intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, autism, or another neurological or other condition of an individual found by the Secretary to be closely related to an intellectual disability or to require treatment similar to that required for individuals with intellectual disabilities, which disability originates before the individual attains age 18, which has continued or can be expected to continue indefinitely, and which constitutes a substantial limitation to the individual. Based on the information provided, the court finds that Ms. Ellison does not qualify as a person with a developmental disability under 71A.10.020, which means that none of the definitions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, none of the 7 definitions of vulnerable adult apply. Based on that, there is no basis for Ms. Cox to be petitioning on behalf of Ms. Ellison, and the 2 matters that have been called will be denied. The court wants to make clear that the court is in no way requesting that or encouraging that these matters be refiled by Ms. Ellison. The court will share that even had they been filed by Ms. Ellison, there is not sufficient evidence to suggest that the orders requested, that the burden required for the orders requested has been met. I mean, the court can't stress enough that while this calendar, that's what we call, the time of that, these hearings in this courtroom that occur on Wednesday mornings at 9 o'clock. The court has real question if these matters actually belong here. The court is not encouraging refiling. We're not also saying you can't necessarily, we're not saying you can't refile. The court is just wanting to make clear that by denying these, dismissing these based on the fact that the court is finding that Ms. Ellison is not a vulnerable adult, is not a request of the court to refile on her own. And the reason the court is making this clear is because in submissions, in other cases, I'm not exactly sure which case, but there have been assertions by declarants in submissions to the court that the court advised me to file this. Law enforcement advised me to file this. The court is not advising anyone to do anything. The court is simply stating that the court is finding that Ms. Ellison is not a vulnerable adult under the statute, under the definitions in the statute. And as a result, these 2 cases are going to be dismissed. But the court is not advising or encouraging anyone to do anything. Okay, so these 2 matters are dismissed. And the court will...
Okay, well, in that next 2 weeks, all of Salish Rescue got protective orders against me, claiming that I'd worked with Eric Wennstrom, who I'd never met, claiming all sorts of things I did. Now, I had already exposed that Salish Rescue was behind or helping to organize the mob that attacked us at the press conference. Okay, and video of some of the Salish Rescue members telling men to, put flags over our head, come into, how to bug us. Their radios were going. They were part of the bad guy scenario. Okay, so when we got into Remsen's court to go for the Ginny thing, Remsen said, Ginny's not a vulnerable adult and all this other stuff, and that I don't have a right to speak for Ginny. So she dismissed the protective order against the guy that had the domestic violence hearing. Okay? Because she said, because I had brought the original, so she went ahead and said it's dismissed because of that. Okay? But and I'm going to talk about that one again in a second. But a week later, the other guy, because there was two guys in it, same scenario. But she gave him a protective order against me with the same situation because she wanted to remove videos I had online that incriminated Libby, Wennstrom, and Salish Rescue. Okay? So after Remsen said, okay, Ginny don't get no protective orders, that's all gone, and yours all gone. Then she focused on me. Now, she was very concerned about something I'd put online and this and that and what I was saying, and that what I put online's unlawful, it has no purpose, she just went at me. She said, all right, you both get like 5 minutes to talk or whatever. Let the guy go on and on and on, and other Salish Rescue members come up and sat with him, just berate and bully and, go at me.
I don't know why Reverend Cox has decided to, from his perspective, because I'm not, come after me and to pursue these things, and it's unclear. I mean, the court doesn't understand what the purpose of these actions, what the purpose is of these actions.
That they're going to rule against me, and there's nothing I can do. So I did say a few things, but they have their mind made up before you come in. They protect the hive mind. They let them, under oath, I swear to tell the truth. They lie. I mean, even saying I didn't win my Obsidian versus Cox case, I did. It's one Google search. I never did anything, never had any criminal charges. One of them was a felon. They put it up about, it's all about me and how horrible and what problem I am. So Remsen issued protective orders against 8 different members of Salish Rescue for me. Okay? Well, the day before that, I was in Judge Walker's court with another Salish Rescue members, and Judge Walker gave them protective orders against me. Okay, so for the week prior, I had been, since the other hearing, I'd been working on a criminal complaint to file about the intimidation. So I filed it that same day. So because it was the same day, one of the Salish Rescue member people decided that was a crime. So they went into the police, and they also told the police that I would do bad things or whatever with officer cam footage, so the police turned the footage off. Gave them complete, all this special protection. So they went in, and they said that, me filing that criminal complaint broke the protection order. So the police wrote that down. I had my auto tags set up on my YouTube videos for Salish Rescue, Wooden Boat, Maritime Center, some of the keywords of Port Townsend. Hadn't changed them yet in that 24-hour period. So the very next day, the Salish Rescue people that had protective orders against me went to the police and filed criminal charges against me for saying the word Salish Rescue, saying the word Wooden Boat. This is an officer cam footage. Now the officers, because they hate me, and are part of the hive mind that, let us be assaulted that night, filed criminal charges against me. Criminal charges went to the prosecutor. Because I had said the word Salish Rescue, Wooden Boat, Maritime Center, right? And I got all the officer cam footage of them telling in the incident reports, this is my crime, okay? So criminal complaints. Okay, so another Salish Rescue member, he didn't give a mailing address. He only gave an email as a service address. I'm pro se. I'm my own attorney. So I emailed the documents. in the case. I'm pro se. So he said that was contact, so that he filed criminal charges. Well, I'm pro se and it's not. And Remsen later in court told him, yeah, well, there's a lot of leeway with pro se. So she did say that to her credit, the only thing I gave her credit on. But in the meantime, Officer Sergeant Jason Greenspane, he was in charge of dispersing the crowd the night that they all assaulted us, but he wasn't even there, right? So the most dangerous cop, really, in part of it, because he was, he was up at city council. He was later on off-scam footage saying he wasn't even there. So he called me. I got criminal charges because I emailed court documents as my own attorney to parties in the case. Criminal charges. And so I put in my sworn statement on that, tried to work with the police on that, whatever. Okay, so then I went to the grocery store, and when I go out and do laundry, I go eat, at the QFC. So I put my laundry in, I went over and I was eating, and was doing my thing. And come to find out, which I didn't know until months later when Salish Rescue tried to take away my right to own a gun. And then I saw the incident reports in the record. So what happened in the store that day that I didn't know. So I'm in there, I'm eating, a chicken, waiting for my laundry, and apparently some members of Salish Rescue come into the store. They saw me. I didn't see them, and I can't see distance. It's right on my driver's license. I can't make out faces. So they told the police I saw him, looked at him intimidatingly, refused to leave the store. Officer John Stewart, was part of the mob that sent Alex French back in to attack us. He's now a deputy at the Jefferson County. So he went to the store, he got security cam footage, and he wrote up all this stuff about how I was there, and and how I'm glaring at him, and I'm he talked about my shaved head, and yep, there she is, and she didn't leave, and she didn't this, and she didn't that, and didn't even know they were there. And so I had criminal charges, and nobody contacted me and told me I had them. I found out a couple months later. Not only did I get the criminal charges, but they went to the prosecutor, right? All these crimes around here that you go and tell the police, they don't send to the prosecutor, but these they did. Okay, so then a couple weeks later, which I didn't know at the time either, no one told me, found out later, I go to QFC to get a prescription. And when I did my appeal on one thing with Judge Mack said how it would work if you are in the store together and you don't know, and so we already knew that. So I was in line for prescription, and I got it, and I turned around, and there was one of the Salish Rescue members that had a protective order, and we were face to face, pretty much, just a basket in between us. And to me, he felt angry and aggressive. Well, I put my hand up like this, just to kind of just stop, and just like, and then I left the store immediately. Well, Salish Rescue told the police that I didn't leave the store, right? And the police didn't bring that footage up. I did, right? So when I saw all this, I sent in a sworn statement and provided my receipts, I got a prescription and I left. And so, and they've also sent people to my house with envelopes with documents in it with weird wax stuff and weird stuff. They constantly stalk me online. They're constantly at me. And the man who got a protective order against Ginny contacts her. This whole year he keeps contacting her. He got her evicted. He went to her house all the time. He went at her and at her and at her. Remsen didn't give a mutual protective order, and he's the bad guy. He's 6'4", Ginny's 5'4". But he got a protective order against Ginny. This is how they do it. And there's a lot of victims out there that, I've talked to some of you. Okay, so I got criminal charges because they said I didn't leave the store. So, getting prescriptions. It's my closest store. These Salish Rescue people, they could just appear anytime. They can follow me somewhere and they get criminal charges. So the police take it serious and they send it to the prosecutor. Criminal charges. So I have over a dozen criminal charges at the prosecutor's office for all of this, okay? So then in the Ginny Ellison case, I also took in documents of a forged boat title. I don't know who forged it. I don't know what happened. I showed Remsen the deal, and she's like, oh, this, all that, blah, blah. And she didn't even, she didn't really even look at the stuff. It had nothing to do with me. I don't want the boat. I don't have nothing to do with nothing. I don't know who forged the documents. But by the next couple of days, the detectives, the police, Jefferson County Police, hauled me in to interrogate me about forging these documents. And so he asked me a bunch of questions and everything, got that hearing, if you're interested in seeing it, or that interview. And the detective said, I'm fighting a sneeze here. The detective said, so the detective asked me questions, and he was convinced that, well, yeah, I didn't have anything to do with the forged documents. He's like, you saw the original? I go, yeah. And he goes, can you get me that? And I got him that. And anyway, when I told him my motive and what I'm doing with the press conference and what, he understood it all, and he's like, oh, okay, I get it all. And so, very disturbing, right? Because he'd established that the documents were forged. And then the police wanted to get me for forging the documents. But then they just figured out I didn't forge the documents, and they let it go. They didn't investigate who did forge the documents. They just wanted to get me. So I had a criminal complaint in against that. That one didn't go to the prosecutor. You think about all of the things that you go to the police and tell them and they don't even listen to you. Heinous crimes, weird things, violence, felony assault, hate crimes don't go to the prosecutor. But all of these things on me did. So now, here in Port Townsend, first time in my life, nearly 55, I have criminal charges at the prosecutor. So, and Kennedy, he had worked with Libby Wennstrom, he'd worked with different people. He'd been trying to get me on all kinds of things, Walker told me I would be in contempt of court if I posted any hearings online. Not hearings. Yeah, hearings. So I used to watch on YouTube the Jefferson County page for courts and just watch different things. And I would download the videos, and then I'd make different videos of myself and commentary. Okay, so I found them on YouTube, I downloaded them, then I commented on them. People everywhere in the world post different court clips and talks about it. But Judge Walker told me, because Libby was big mad about it, that if I do it, I'm in contempt of court. Like I could, go to jail. So that's going to be a criminal charge. Well, later in a hearing with Remsen said, well, lots of people do that, and so there's no issue with me posting hearings. So, but, they wanted to try to get me for that. And I have conversations with Libby and the prosecutor where they're trying to get me for posting hearings that I found publicly on YouTube. So they're out there to the public. But because I have them and make commentary about them, then they want criminal charges. So they've all been out to get me and silence me because of exposing them, like with the Michael Allman case, what the prosecutor Kennedy did. Right? There was a court order to return his dog to him, his family, his emotional support dog. Also, an uncut wolf hybrid. Each puppy worth $700. You could have like 7 in a batch, right? They took the dog, never gave the dog back, nearly killed the man. And Judge Mindy Walker issued a court order to the city of Port Townsend. The prosecutor knew, Center Valley Animal Rescue knew, and they defied the court order and didn't return the dog. Michael got criminal charges and charged $25,000 for them keeping the dog illegally. That's how corrupt these guys are. So they prosecuted him because he didn't have cream, and it came out in court for his dog's chronic skin condition that in the court the vet said was incurable. That's a crime, prosecutable. But Kennedy can't prosecute a guy for hiding a body of a baby that he either, unalived or didn't. They don't prosecute felony hate crimes. They don't prosecute so many things, but they prosecuted the homeless guy for that. And they push all these criminal charges against me. So that's how the courts here work, okay? And it's very abusive. And they use protective orders to go at their enemies. So it's a civil court. You get a protective order. And then instantly they get you on criminal charges. That's what they did to Eric Wennstrom, calling 911 over and over, stalking him, following him until they set him up. He got like 6 months in jail. They went at him and at him. They took his guns, stripped him of his rights. So that's how they use protective orders here in Port Townsend. And Remsen has, so many women have come forward and told me about, and watching in court, she's abusive to the women. These victims of abuse, she should not be in family law, like child custody things. She's horrible. I have people that have told me they've hired her privately as their attorney and how she was abusive, and now how she is as a pro tem, judge. All these lives, women leaving the court crying, right? And she's sticking up for the men, but abusively going, well, you shouldn't have talked to him that way, or you shouldn't have. Every time she's siding with the abuser, and I would think that, her and I are about the same age, we're both lesbians. I would think she'd be more like wanting to protect women, but I don't get it. And the other MO here that's the same for all of these abusive women is that, like with the case with Jenny Ellison's eviction, to make sure she got evicted not properly, but badly, and all of her property stolen and just horrible things, Libby Wennstrom's attorney, which is Alton, Alton McFadden, was their attorney in the divorce, or attorney, in the divorce. There was paperwork with the ethics complaint, but he didn't represent her in that. But Libby got him, or paid him, hired him, to represent Jenny's landlord, who's the father of one of the Salish rescue people, right? And now I've recently found out this Alton McFadden also represents other men in Remsen's court that abuse women. And she sides with them and protects them. Now, every time you go to a protective order hearing, it's already pre-decided. Who they like better, who they know better, who's the same politics, who's part of the hive mind. Right? They don't even listen to you. They don't look at all the documents to prove. They just rule against who they want to control. And that's, and I've heard dozens of stories over the last year. But for me, to get 8 protective orders and a dozen criminal charges for telling the police about crimes that have happened, for standing up for someone that's a victim, for doing what I do online they call harassment, right? I've adjudicated it. See, Obsidian versus Cox 2014. I've won up to the 9th Circuit, right? And when they issue a protective order to stop your speech before it happens, it's unconstitutional prior restraint. Both courts I gave, it was like 5 to 15 pages of case law, right? But the case law is irrelevant in Jefferson County, Washington. They want to give you the smackdown, so that's what they did with me. And just like with Eric, after they got it, then they went into criminal charges to get me in jail. Okay? And they haven't yet. But the police didn't even tell me about the criminal charges. I found them myself later. So, like a month ago or so, I did a video about the local drug deal murder that happened. And in it, I talked about concealed carry. And Salish Rescue instantly went to the court to have the court take my guns away. So to take away another constitutional right. So then I had to litigate that. And now they're all trying to get protective orders for 5 years or indefinitely. Okay, and so they don't seem to understand that I have a right to do what I do online. There's thousands to millions of people all over the world doing it, but they keep thinking that, like Remsen saying, there's no, and Walker, there's no lawful purpose. There's no reason for you to do it. Well, first of all, it turns up discovery, right? I've been doing it for 20 years in cases. It stands up for victims. It gives victims a voice. But that's all irrelevant. I have a First Amendment right to do it, and thousands of people, millions of people all over the world do it. But here they civil court protective order it so they can criminalize it, so they can jail you and punish you, and the cops help them. So there's that story. So yeah, I just wanted to tell you about my criminal charges, and I never had any before that. Even though you guys like to call me convicted swindler, extortionist, that was a civil case. There was nothing criminal in that. I mean, if it was such a good case, how come I got no criminal charges? I tried to. I reported myself to the FBI. I reported myself to the police. I tried to get them to get criminal charges against me so I could litigate it. But instead of litigating it, they just accused me of a crime in the New York Times, in Reuters, in different media, and the gullible Port Townsend hive mind buy it. And Libby Wennstrom, your esteemed counselor, promotes it and defames me. And Faber is an attorney. He knows. I won. I won my appeal. And it wasn't a criminal case. And I was never convicted of any crime. And I was my own attorney. So anyway, there's that story about, because a lot of people believe I have criminal charges. Well, I guess I do now. For speech here in Port Townsend. For standing up against the rotten to the core, corrupt activist judges at Jefferson County Courthouse. I met with some new people today. Over the last year, like I said, over a dozen women have come forward of what Remsen has done to side with the abuser. Just mounds of evidence of what the abuser's done. Incident reports, all kinds of stuff. Remsen was so horrible to me. She's like, oh yeah, 911 told you to get a protective order. Like, so what? Like, I'll share the hearing with you someday. It's a public record. And you can order it. You know, you can order hearings on all these cases. It's phenomenal. The Eric Wennstrom case, there's thousands and thousands of documents, hundreds of videos. All of Salish Rescue went at him to destroy him, and I guess they won. They got him jailed like 6 months. I think they got his guns indefinitely, probably got money and the different assets in the divorce, and, you know, that's what they do. And weaponized protective orders, lawfare. And most people can't fight back because you can't afford to appeal. If you can afford to appeal, you can win at the higher courts because the higher courts look at the law. But I couldn't afford to appeal them all. And so, you know, there's nothing I could really do about it. And it's happened to a lot of people here in Port Townsend. So I guess I'll just leave that at that for now. So bye for now.